As moms with businesses, flexibility is key. In today's episode, I sit down with Michelle Pontvert to talk about building a life first business. Michelle is a life first business strategist and educator obsessed with helping passionate entrepreneurs with limited capacity build businesses that truly support their unique life, circumstances, and goals. She also runs the Business Chic Shop, is co host of the Marketing Like a Mother podcast, co owner of Like a Mother movement, and a hands on mom and lifelong Aussie expat living in France. I really enjoyed this conversation with Michelle because although I do currently have consistent childcare for my 3-year-old son, I am about to fully embrace the work from home mom nap time hustle chaos once again when my second baby is born early November. And I know I desperately need to make some changes to my workload once again. So talking with Michelle really helped me get back to, the basics and figure out like what I can and can't be doing once baby is here, or what I should and shouldn't be doing once baby is here, essentially. But if you are in that same boat and you're struggling to keep up with it all, whether you have a newborn, an infant, or even just a toddler, because toddler meltdowns are real, y'all, and you're just struggling to keep up with it all when you have littles at home, then this is the episode for you. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the Moms Make Money podcast. I'm your host, Jenny. I'm the owner of Moms Make Money Collective, a podcast and visibility strategist and mom of two. Many moms feel like we need to sacrifice our careers for our children, but I wholeheartedly believe that we can have a thriving business and family at the same time. In this podcast, we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of running a business as a mom and getting real and raw about all things parenting. So buckle up because we're about to go all in. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the Moms Make Money podcast. I'm super excited you're here and I cannot wait to chat with you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you make money online?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for having me. So I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I actually run two different businesses. One is under my own name, Michelle Pontvert, and I have a shop that I opened earlier this year with a whole ton of digital products and courses and workshops and goodies, basically all focused on helping you streamline running a business around real life. And I particularly recently got interested in sharing resources for people's brains that are a little different, helping them think a bit differently about how they actually structure and run the business to suit their unique brains. So I run that out of my shop, which is called the Business Chic Shop. And then I also have a joint business with my business bestie on the other side of the world called Like a Mother Movement. And as you can guess, we're both mums and we're really dedicated to helping empower, excite, enthused entrepreneurs do all the things without burning out. And we together run a really fun, really cool membership for multi-passionate entrepreneurs. It's called the Shiny Squirrel Chasers Club. And we really love helping you productively pursue all those shiny ideas that we get as business owners. So some of the ways I make money online, I also love sharing affiliates. I run a blog. In our joint business, we have a podcast and like lots of little bits and bobs that all add up to be a lovely, comfortable income.
Yeah, no, I love that. I am also a multi-passionate person and I have a joint business myself with someone as well. So it's really fun. I think that's the beauty of having your own business. You can kind of like once you get like comfortable with your own stuff, if you have bandwidth, you can kind of start expanding. And obviously it's a lot easier to run a business with two people than,
Oh my
starting a
gosh,
second
yeah.
business by yourself.
Definitely. It was kind of an accident that I started the second business. We just got on so well, and it was so easy to work together that we kind of couldn't help but make the second business. And I think it's been such a source of joy and
Mhm.
fun in my life. It really feels like I'm not working most of the
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of it because you just feel like it's not work, you're excited to do it, and you're like, I could make like $10 from this a month, and I'd still probably want to
Mhm.
do it because it's so much fun. And that's how I feel about my my bit like joint business with my business bestie too. I'm like, I don't care if we're really making a lot of money. It's just fun. And we get to,
Mhm.
meet every week and have, create all these fun things together that, we could both probably create on our own if we really wanted to. But it just kind of adds the two minds together. And we're both, we have kind of opposite expertise. So it really
Mhm.
helps. It's like she does all the techie stuff and I do all like the forward facing, like outreach, that kind of thing. So we make a good pair. So I think it's great to have kind of a partner in business
Mhm.
to kind of give you that extra thing, especially if you're multi-passionate, like so many people in the online space seem to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so true too about finding someone who you get on with, but has kind of complementary skill sets. That
Yeah,
was a happy accident with my business bestie Olivia and I. We are both marketers, we're both very experienced in that space, but we have different skill sets within that.
right.
And it's been so much easier to get projects done because she happens to be really good at the stuff I find harder and vice
Yep.
versa. So I
Yeah. So
love
you can split it up and you're not like trying to do it all by yourself. It's
exactly.
like it makes it great because I think about like whenever I was in college and high school, you had to do like group projects with all these random people. Didn't really
Mm.
get to pick who you wanted to do it with. So in business, you're kind of doing a group project, but like you got to pick your partner like truly based on strengths, not just because that's your friend, you know?
Yeah,
So
exactly. I love that analogy.
but yeah, I was just thinking back. I'm like, oh man, I had so many people like
Oh,
had group projects with that. It was just like you either pulled all the weight, like two people pulled all the weight, and then everyone else just like coasted, which is
yeah.
not
I was
great.
always the one doing all the work in the
Yeah,
corner.
me too. Me and like the one other like really attentive person, and then everyone else
Mhm.
was just kind of coasting, which
That sounds
gotta
about
love it.
right.
But yeah, so I know you, like you said, you have your own business, you have a joint business,
Mhm.
and you also have a high needs child. So that is a
Yeah.
lot to keep up with. I have all of those things, except for I don't have a high needs child. I mean, he's 3, so I think he's just high needs in general because he is 3, but he doesn't have any like
Mhm.
complex needs or anything like that, other
Yeah,
aside from being a 3-year-old that has meltdowns.
that's
But can
already a
you
lot.
it's already a lot, yeah. But can you give us an insider look into like your quote unquote like weekly schedule? I put it in quotation marks because it's
Yeah.
like it probably changes every day, let alone on a weekly basis. But I'm just kind of curious,
Mhm.
like how you structure that, how you manage that, and you know, yeah, just kind of give us a good, nice little behind the scenes of that.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's pretty unorthodox, but I have minimal planning and actually have kind of figured out how my non-planning works. I've created a workshop around it. It's called Elastic Planning because
Mhm.
it's just that I really have the roughest of roughest ideas of when I want things to happen, but
Right.
everything is flexible, everything is movable because on I want to say a good week, I'll get about 20 hours of desk time, like time to
Mhm.
sit at my computer. On other weeks, I can get as little as, like, 2. So, I also don't get a lot of say in when those weeks happen.
Yeah.
As part of my little guy's kind of needs include a lot of extra therapies and a lot
Yeah.
of extra support outside of the school system, which I live in France is wonderfully provided for us, but also given to me with no say in when it happens.
Yeah.
So,
You're like, you
I
just
need to
gotta like
remain very
randomly make it
flexible.
happen.
Yeah, so I have to remain very flexible in how I organize our weeks, and they really do change like week to week. Um, but I kind of have a running open to-do list, and I use the Eisenhower matrix a lot, which is the
Mm,
kind of process you use to decide what is important, urgent, and then also what's not that important and
yeah.
what's not that urgent to help you kind of figure out what things need your attention at the moment. But I also really believe in following your excitement and your enthusiasm. That's a big part of being a multi-passionate, I think, too. And I'm also neurodivergent, and I really need to play into my own need to be interested and engaged in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I probably won't do it.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of actually kind of unwork around how I approach getting things done, really helping give myself permission to start with the fun things. I like to call it starting with dessert first, like doing the good stuff first, because that helps me get rolling with doing and actually starting a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
And I find that gives me momentum to keep me going throughout the day. Um, but I find that I also kind of need to, adjust as my own energy levels shift. And sometimes I'll have lots of creative energy on a day I have no desk time. So trying to still find ways to fuel that energy in a productive way. So taking that time to ideate, taking
Yeah.
that time to like come up with my big to-do lists can be a really great way to still feel like I'm doing something, even if I can't be at my desk, quote unquote, working. So I think it's really just been about learning my own self, my own brain,
Right.
and adapting that to the schedule I have rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important as a mom and a business owner.
Mhm.
And especially you have complex needs yourself or your child
Yep.
does. I mean, I know for me, like I don't have any diagnoses, but like I'm pregnant right now and I feel like mom
Oh,
brain is
yep.
just
It's so real.
it's yeah, it's so real. I'm like, I feel like a squirrel. I'm like literally like,
Mhm.
oh, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta do that. Oh, I gotta do this. And then I'm like sitting there like with my 9 week clock ticking, like, oh, I have 9 weeks till I give birth. All right, like this is real. I'm in crunch time. And my husband's like, he doesn't understand, but I'm like, literally, it's like a ticking time bomb inside my body right now. Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, and then and managing all the appointments and stuff, like
Yeah, it's a
prenatal
lot.
and well, yeah, it's a mess. So so I've been leaning into like being more flexible and stuff too, but at the
Yeah,
same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to get done before the baby gets here because I want to take a
yeah.
maternity leave and not be face to face on calls and things like that for 2 months as well. So it's been a juggle, but
I
I
can
think
imagine.
but I think it's just like that's the beauty of having your own business though, because like
Yeah.
I was talking to my husband the other day and I was like, man, like I don't know how people that are in corporate, like both parents do it because with your kids sick, like and they're not
Mhm.
able to go to school, like who's going to have to take the day off? And like, it's a lot. Like my son was actually sick on Monday. And then he
Mm.
went back to school Tuesday and, he's fine now. It's just a weird one day thing, but it's like, if I was in corporate, like what the heck would I have done? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
literally did not expect it. He had zero symptoms. He just woke up and he was like, my tummy hurts. And then he had like a
Oh.
slight fever. And I was like, where did this come from? So it's crazy. And I just I was like thinking about it. And anytime I think sometimes you have those moments where you're like, oh man, I just want to burn my business to the ground because I'm just over it. I'm feeling stressed out. Like it'd be so much
Mhm.
easier to just have a corporate job. I also think I look back and I'm like, actually it wouldn't because I would be trying to like juggle dropping off at
Mhm.
school and getting to work and all that stuff too. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm just so grateful and thankful to have an online business. And I'm sure you feel the same way as well, because I don't know how
definitely.
people manage it without
Yeah.
it.
Well, funnily enough, that kind of need for flexibility is part of what brought me to start my own business.
Yeah.
I actually have a background in film production,
Okay.
and my husband also is in film, still works in film, but it's a very strange industry
Mm-hmm.
in that you work on a project for several months really intensely, like beyond full time. He works a 12 to 14-hour day,
Yeah.
often away from home. And at one point, the idea was that both of us were going to do that. And I could not figure out the puzzle of how a child
Yeah.
functions in that environment.
No, no.
And it wasn't suiting me that well anyway. I need a lot of routine. I like predictability. And I found that very challenging. So when I left the industry, I really wanted to make sure that the compromise, I guess, for leaving this quote unquote dream job of doing this like super creative, fun thing really did give me that flexibility that I was craving. And so it kind of led me on this journey that eventually got me to start my own business because every other job I had when I worked for other people never gave me that level of freedom to drop everything when my son gets sick
Yeah.
or be the person who's there for every single one of his bajillion appointments and actually be in the room with him and support him in those years when he needs it, which
Yeah.
is something I knew I wanted even before he showed up.
Yeah.
And I
Same,
think
same.
that's something a lot of entrepreneurs want too, especially mums. Like we start these businesses for that flexibility.
Yep.
And I think along the way, sometimes we lose track of that kind of
Yeah.
why and fall into the trap of like, well, you got to hustle, we got to do all these
Mm-hmm.
things. We set
Mm-hmm.
ourselves lots of deadlines and appointments for our work that start to kind of take away from
Yeah.
that ability to be there for the kids.
Yep.
That was kind of the point behind all of this. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
I really like to kind of remind us of like
yeah,
why are we doing
no.
this in the first
I
place.
think that's so important because, yeah, I mean, I know for me when my son was born 3 years ago, I was really, 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 really good about like, saying no and having like really, really good
Mhm.
boundaries. But then then he went to school after like a year. So then, then I loosened up a little bit and then I was like, okay, I'm still having like a pretty, flexible schedule.
Mm.
And then I got to the point where I just kept adding more and more and more. And I'm like, wait, this is not as like, it's still flexible. Like, don't get me wrong. It's
Mm.
definitely not like a corporate job, but I got to the point where I just kept stacking more stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing
What am I
here?
building for
I don't
myself?
really know what I'm doing here. And now I'm having to scale back again because I'm going to have a newborn
Mhm.
again at home with me. So I'm like, okay, we need to just figure out a nice balance and keep it balanced, like, and not let people or things, all the shiny things, take over and, get in the way of that, because you can't be a good mom if you're burnt out either.
Yeah, and I think that is, like, the hard lesson of motherhood and of parenthood too. It's something I think I'm still learning, is that whole put your own mask
Yeah.
on first before you help your kid.
Yeah.
And especially as the parent of a higher needs child, it's so easy to kind of fall into the trap of just taking
Mm-hmm.
care of him, of taking care of other people in
Yep.
the businesses.
Yep.
And I've fallen into burnout a couple times. And I actually took some really drastic measures last year to enforce boundaries for myself mostly, to
Right.
help me not do that again, because I think as mothers, we're very used to mothering people, we're very used to taking care of them, of putting their priorities first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to stop that instinct with my family, but I
But
do need to
yeah.
include myself in that
Yeah,
protective
you're part of
boundary.
your family too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's really hard for moms because, yeah, I'm the same way. I would be like, my son, my business. And then it was like
Mhm.
me. Like, I'm like, husband, I love you, but you're not even top
Not
three.
even on the list.
But like I was always third, and like when
Mhm.
you're putting yourself in third place, you're not doing jack for yourself. Like I was not working out. I mean, I'm still not because I'm pregnant. I didn't want to start working out.
You
Like
gotta pass.
I was like, I didn't want to start working out when I got pregnant because they tell you not to add, like,
Mhm.
don't all of a sudden start being really active when you're pregnant when you weren't before. So I'm like, all right, well, this can wait until after I'm not pregnant anymore. But like I wasn't like eating properly. I wasn't
Mhm.
resting. I mean, I was sleeping, but
Sleep.
it like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was sleeping. I was decent sleep, but I wasn't like, yeah, I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking like mental breaks.
Yeah.
I wasn't giving myself any like type of self-care. Like, there was days that I
Yeah.
was like, oops, I definitely didn't even like put on moisturizer today. Like, thankfully I
Mm.
brushed my teeth, but like I didn't even do my skincare routine, which is like, to me, that's
Yep.
important. Once you're in your 30s, you kind of need to put some skincare on, right?
Yeah.
So just like little things like that. Like I feel like moms just like let slip because
Mm.
they prioritize their kid, they prioritize their business, and then it's like, okay, but where do I fit in? So I think
Yeah.
figuring out where you really fit in is going to be really, really crucial for people because, yeah, if your cup's not full, it's hard to take care of your kids. You're probably going to have a shorter fuse. I know for me, like
Yeah.
I notice, I'm like, oof, I'm running low on like patience when I shouldn't
Mhm.
be. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's like learning your signals before you get to the burnout point, and
exactly.
I personally struggle a little bit with introspection of, like, knowing my own feelings in the moment.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
often find that I catch myself, like, afterwards being like, "Gosh, I'm tired," or "Wow, I feel a bit, like, grumpy," or
Yeah. Yeah.
"tense," or "overwhelmed," and it's not because the moment I'm in at the like, that specific time when I have those feelings is overwhelming, it's because I haven't been giving myself the space I need to process everything,
Yeah.
to like relax after some stress. And
Right.
I think
Right.
that go, go, go mentality can be really hard if you do need time to like decompress, to process, to like absorb all the feelings of the day, all of the stress of the day. And I think it's, I know I'm not a big self-care person and not like a like meditation-y person, but I do think
Mhm.
giving yourself like white space
You
to
got to do
just
something. You got
be
to
a
do something for
human.
your mental health. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't just be go, go, go all the time from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed.
Yeah.
And I always was like that before I had kids too.
Mhm.
And then, I'm like, that kind of worked before I had kids. But when you have kids, you can't really be like that. Cause
Nope.
like you can't wake up and then all of a sudden, like 10, like that be your first thing is like, oh, I didn't even get to get dressed because I had to go tend to my child
Yeah.
immediately. So you have to like figure out something that works where you
Yeah.
can have a little bit of time to yourself, whether that's in the morning or the evening. I know for moms it's either morning or evening or
Yeah.
nap time, something. If your kid's a little older, obviously they don't always take naps, but um,
Nope.
for me, for me, I think it's the evening is kind of like my decompression time because
Yeah.
quiet. My
Yeah.
husband's doing his own thing, I'm doing my own thing, and you're still able to just kind of like take time and
Yeah. You got to make it work. I mean, I think
exactly.
one of the lessons I learned in this kind of drastic restructuring was to make some of my work time more fulfilling, more of that creativity of
Mhm,
I love checking off a to-do list, like I love getting things done, but without that pressure of a deadline, and really kind of
mhm,
shaping how I approach projects so I get more of that fun, more of those dopamine hits of like
right.
doing the thing I want to be doing has meant my work time. I still have like deadlines and customer service and all the same things everybody else does, but I have more space to
Mhm,
enjoy the work I'm doing. And I find I still try and take like the regular breaks, like you said, but I think trying to really make sure I like the work I'm doing and
mhm.
having a good time has
Right.
helped fill that cup up as well.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
we can't enjoy every single task that we do because
No,
that's not, like,
everybody's got to do
realistic.
taxes.
You gotta
I
do
know.
bookkeeping and taxes stuff. I mean, you can hire a bookkeeper, but, like, that's not always feasible at the
Yeah.
beginning
And
or
sometimes you still
even
have to do a whole bunch of work
exactly.
and
So
tax
it's just
stuff.
like you gotta prep for your bookkeeper anyways. It's not like you
Yeah,
can just hand them your stuff and say, "Here, deal with
I
it.
wish.
I haven't done anything, but here you deal with it." Like, that's not how it works, unfortunately.
No.
Um, but yeah. So I think that's really important. And you don't have clients anymore, right? I know you used to, or do you?
Yeah, so I used to be fully client services.
Mhm.
I was doing website design and branding, and I really enjoyed that creative work, but I
Right.
found the deadlines of
Yeah.
having clients who needed me for certain parts of the project, who needed their websites delivered, was just not fitting with the life I have and
Yeah.
the way my kind of brain works. So that was part of this like drastic restructuring. Instead
Mhm.
of what most people will tell you is like slowly phase out your clients while you add in digital products. I was like, nope,
You just burnt it.
we're
You burned it
just
down.
burning it all to the ground. Started launching digital products and using a lot more affiliate marketing to kind of replace that income on a much shorter pipeline. I
Yeah.
basically stopped taking clients in November and then, December onwards, it's been digital products
Oh,
full
wow.
force.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Did you experience like a decent dip in income or was it
Yeah.
pretty yeah.
No, I did. And
But
I
you
was
prepared
prepared
for it. You were
for
like, all
it
right,
in
it's
the
fine. You didn't
I
expect to
didn't
like
see it.
make it up in a
I
month.
mean, I won't say I had like a grand plan of like, I'm going to do this transition in December and I planned this all year. I did not plan it. I didn't see it coming, but I hit such a hard burnout. I was like, if I don't stop the clients, I won't have a business.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't advise it to everybody else. I would hopefully get you to a point where you're not burning out so hard first. But I want to say that, like, if you do need to do that transition faster, it doesn't need to be years and years of doing that, like easing out of clients and easing into digital products. You can accelerate that if you really put your energy towards it. And
Yeah.
I'd done a bit of work like building an audience, but I had, pretty small email list, a pretty small audience at the time. And it really was just about putting all of my intention, all of my efforts that I had towards really being hyper focused of like, I'm going to make a good thing and then I'm going to get it in front of people. And that's been kind of my obsession since
Yeah.
then of becoming visible, growing my audience, growing my kind of knowability in our industry, and
Mhm.
then building products that I would have wanted, that I would find helpful earlier on.
Right.
And it's shifted and evolved with the sort of shifts in my life and my business. But I really think that pivot as it was the saving grace of my business. And now I'm making more than I was with clients, and I'm
Mhm.
ridiculously so much happier and like
Yeah.
better off in my mental state.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the income is, I would have definitely done this transition 1,000 times over.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that. I mean, I still work with clients, but I have more like of a team model. So I
Hmm.
mostly do like the strategy and things like that. And then, making sure my clients are happy. And then my team kind of handles the day to
Yeah.
day. So that kind of gives me that a little bit of flexibility, but I understand like the kind of team slash agency model isn't for everyone. So,
No.
um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can structure it too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I've seen so many people like start doing like VIP days and VIP weeks where it's
Hmm.
like, that's more flexible as well. But
Yeah.
for sometimes I look at that too and I'm like, my luck, something would happen that one day that person was scheduled. Like the whole
Yep.
week is totally fine, but that one day someone's scheduled for something, it's like chaos ensues. That is just classic me. So, I've done a couple, but I always get nervous. I'm like, oh, that's going to be the one day that like
Yeah.
the world's going to implode. And
I know. I really wanted to love the VIP day model, but I will say it was the stepping stone to what kept me going for the last year of my client services part of
uh-huh.
my business, which was productized services. I'm not sure if
Right.
listeners are like that familiar, but it's basically where you sell a service like a product. So
Yeah.
it's like basically packaged up so everybody gets the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a super tight service and super tight like delivery flow.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's automated, a lot of it's hands off.
Yeah.
And that really helped so that I was only really showing up to do the part of the job that only I could do that was like that
Mhm.
deliverable.
Yeah.
And that really, really helped for that sort of last year of my client services work. And it's something I still teach, something I really believe in. If that VIP day kind of model doesn't work, if those day rates just don't fit, I think product or services is the kind
Yeah.
of nice compromise with still
Yeah.
working with clients, still serving people,
Yeah.
but it's something you can structure to really be as flexible as you need, and
Mhm.
it's repeatable, and it's a lot less brain space and like emotional capacity of taking on a client. So I
Right.
found that
Cause
really
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, because when you have monthly clients, like we do like day rates and things like that too, but we have monthly
Mm,
clients too, and obviously that's a little like, of course, the income is consistent every single month, which is amazing,
which is
but
great.
but keeping up with the day to day stuff can be a lot. Like a weekly podcast episodes for all of our clients is, you know, it's it's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with, and people don't realize until they get into it. They're like, "Oh yeah, you guys are doing a lot for us." Like
Mm.
they can't imagine managing their own show by themselves because especially they don't have like a
Hmm.
partner in crime for it. So it's definitely a lot, but
But so
yeah,
worth it. I love our
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Podcasting is great. So
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so with your multiple businesses too, like I know
Yeah.
you kind of are, you're very flexible with it, but like how do
Hmm.
you and Olivia kind of manage that? Like, is someone like always manning the inbox? Do you guys kind of split those tasks up? Do you have like designated, like, 2 hours a week you're going to work on that business, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a running dialogue we have. We have a WhatsApp chat that hasn't gone more than 12 hours but without one of us posting. We're in quite different time zones, so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
nice. I
She's in
wake
the
up to her
US, right?
messages. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
in Ohio in the US and I'm in Paris, France. So I wake up to like all her messages and ideas, and then I have my morning to kind of work on things and send her over ideas before she wakes up. But we've sort of naturally divided up the different tasks and the different roles within the joint business. So Olivia is really great at customer service, which is
Mm.
wonderful. So she manages the inbox. She's really good at being that forward-facing person.
Yeah.
She's a really great copywriter, so she does anything to do with copy. And then I am like tech systems design nerd, so I
Mm,
take care of
mhm.
all the like building and the making of the stuff. And then together we do like trainings for inside
Yeah,
our membership,
like everything that, yeah, you're not just
the
going to
stuff
do
that we
one
do
person.
together. We
Yeah,
do
exactly.
together.
Recording. Yeah, I know. And you guys
Yeah.
also don't record all your episodes together, right?
Yeah,
It's
we have a mix of the two of us, and then each of us individually will do interviews
Yep.
with guests, which has been
Hmm.
a great way to divide
Yeah,
us up.
that's really
And
cool. Yeah.
we cover the globe with our time zone, so it's worked out
Yeah.
really
No, it's
well.
it's definitely cool. I remember Olivia interviewed me a couple months ago, and I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, this is super cool how you guys like split it up." So it's like, you're not always having to do every single interview because that can be a lot.
Yeah, it can be a lot, and I find that yeah, it gives us like a variety of episodes. So I've had a lot of lovely comments of, oh, we're looking forward to this episode or that episode, but we love that there's kind of this mix, this variety.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then they get both
yeah,
of your perspectives on your joint kind of episodes too. So
yeah,
that's
and we
fun.
tend to bring in kind of our own guests. So
Yeah.
it will often like, I don't know if that's an expression in America, like dibs it, bags it, like reserve someone, be like, I want them.
Okay.
To
Okay.
make
Yeah.
sure, like
Yeah. You're like,
make sure we get to
like,
post the
okay.
people we're
So
really excited
our
about.
our terminology is dibs. Like I got
Dibs.
dibs on
Okay.
that person. Yeah.
I'm Australian. I lived in America for a long time, so my terminology is all mouthful.
It's a mishmash, right?
It's a big old mishmash.
I love that. But yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm more of like the kind of the Olivia and the relationship too. I'm doing the
Mm.
inbox and like when we're doing bundles and summits and stuff, I'm the one
Mhm.
who's reaching out and being the person who's like, hey, we need your materials. Kind of
Nice.
that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like I don't love doing that, but I'm decent at it. So
Yeah,
I'll
and
do
that was something we talked about pretty early on was, we don't get to both do things we're beyond excited to do. Some of the stuff is
it.
not like that sexy,
Yeah,
but what we kind of did was evaluate which things take more energy from us than
yeah,
others.
that's important.
So, Olivia finds copywriting really energy giving, and that's something she really enjoys. She
Mm.
actually quite likes doing customer service, which is wonderful. But, some of the other stuff, the finances, because our business is in the States, she kind of keeps an eye on that. And that's really energy taxing. And I'm so grateful she does it.
Yeah,
And that's something we had to kind of balance to make sure that each of us has kind of fair energy load.
yeah.
I find a lot of the tech and design stuff fun and pretty energy giving, but I take care of a lot of the admin kind of keeping things going. We participate in a lot of events, and I just kind of
Hmm.
like handle that all on my own.
Yeah,
Um, and that's something that does take, mental time and space to keep tabs of all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
I love that. Do you guys like have like other than your weekly, I mean your daily like chats, do you have any like standing like calls that you do together to talk about things
Yeah,
in more in depth or
definitely not standing, but we try regularly to have a chat with time zones and little kids. It's
it's
often a
hard?
like
Yeah.
call while someone's got a toddler on their phone.
Yeah.
But it's been really nice that we don't need to have like a sit down Zoom chat to still feel like we're in sync and
Right.
constantly communicating. Kind of took some of the pressure off needing to have calls. So
Yeah.
now when we do finally find a time that everything works and we don't have kids around, it is sacred time we use for recording
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I got that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Lindsay and I had a similar thing, and then now we're back. We were back to doing like weekly calls because my son was in
Mm.
school and it was really consistent. He wasn't really getting sick as much as he was like the first
Oh.
6 months of
Oh
his
my gosh, it's always
daycare experience.
terrible.
Yeah, I thought I was never gonna end. I literally got to the point where I'm like, okay, we're like, I'm about to just take you out because I'm
Oh
literally paying to
no.
send you, and you're not even getting to go.
Not going.
But now it's totally good. He probably gets
Mm.
sick once a quarter at maximum. So, I mean, obviously it's about to go into sixth season, so who knows?
Yep,
But
I
like
know.
generally he's pretty good for the most part. So, but I will have a newborn. So, yeah, those are probably, I will have probably a baby with me, but I think a newborn's a lot easier than a toddler to bring on a call with you personally.
True.
But yeah, so awesome. And then kind of speaking about like sicknesses and children and
Mhm.
wrangling all of that, like I know like like I said, when we first started having my son in school, he was sick every other week and my
Oh my
schedule is
goodness.
just like Tetris. Like I was like, okay, what can I move? Like what can I not move? And then of
Mhm.
course I was like, yeah, it just was all over the place. But do you have any like tips on making that easier? I obviously know it comes with the territory of being, the primary parent, you work from home
Yeah.
parent, like you're not gonna be like, hey husband, go pick up my kid because like you have more flexibility. But sometimes it
Mhm.
can be really challenging, especially if you have stuff that you need to tend to each day, especially as a service provider or even just if you have products and things like that, it can still be
Yeah.
challenging. But do you have any like tips for making that easier? Because I know for me, like if it's just one day, I'm like, okay, cool. But usually when he was sick, it would be like a whole week. He'd be out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, my whole week is just gone to crap, you know?
It's rough. I mean, we definitely had more than 6 months of sickness very frequently, and I hope it goes away soon because it is really hard, and it's hard because I don't know about you, but, like, I got everything he got too, so he would be sick for a week, and then I would be sick for a week, so I'd be
So you'd have
really
like
miserable most of the
2
time.
weeks of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
funny enough, I didn't get sick most of the time. I only got it like when he got like think he got RSV. I think I got RSV too,
Oh,
which is super weird.
that's not
Like I didn't even
fun.
know
Yeah.
adults could get this. But yeah, so that's like I really didn't get most of it for some reason, which is so interesting because like I'm not really exposed to as much. Whereas my
Yeah.
husband was the one getting sick. I'm like, dude, you go to work every day.
Oh,
Why are you getting sick? Like you
I mean,
should be the one who's exposed to more than me. But
yeah, no, it's really crazy, and I think maybe my best advice is just to kind of acknowledge and accept that you're in a season where you will have lower capacity.
Yeah.
So to just not sign yourself up for so
For a
many things
million
that are going to
things.
need you at a specific time. I will say I have the luxury of, well, luxury. I have the specific circumstance that my husband works away from home for several months of the year.
Mhm.
It's very unpredictable when that happens, but he'll also be home full time some months of the year.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I tend to
Because
book
if he's
all
on a
my,
project, then he's
yeah,
gone, right? But then there's a couple
he's
months where
gone.
there's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like solo parent half the time and then have a full time partner at home with me the other half, which is really unusual, but I
Definitely
tend to
cool though.
schedule.
Definitely
It's
cool.
really interesting. It
Yeah.
works for me, but I tend to schedule all of my like appointmenty things when he's home so that
Mm-hmm.
if we're sick, if little guy's having a hard time sleeping, if like something's happening, there's another grown up in
Yeah.
the room
Yeah.
to attend to him. And
Yeah.
I'll have this kind of approach of, okay, when I'm in what I call solo mummy mode, when it's just me, I don't sign up for any podcast interviews. I don't sign up for any appointments, anything. I just keep the
Mm,
schedule super clear because
right.
I know if little guy's sick, I'm on it, and then I'm going to be down the next week. And I just assume I'll do less during
Yeah.
those times. And
Yeah.
then when my husband's home, I can do all my fun collaborative stuff
Yeah. That
because I
makes
have another
sense.
grown up in the room.
Right.
But we've had periods where he's been away for 6 months, maybe more, and it's hard to put off having appointments. So I
Yeah.
found,
Well, I can't really do this, so I guess you just
yeah,
kind of
for another like 6 to 8 months. So I have found that like being really upfront with people when you are setting appointments, and this was the same when I was taking clients,
Mhm.
was just saying, I have a little kid with additional needs, and my schedule is, structured around him. So here is my best, estimate, my goal for a deadline, for a, time for an appointment. But I'm
Mhm.
going to have the caveat of like life comes first. My whole business philosophy is called a life first business,
Mhm.
and
So
life
you got to
takes
follow that,
precedence.
right?
You got to follow it. And I say it in my emails, it was in all my onboarding stuff, it was in a lot of my sales materials of just saying up front, like, I'm a parent, I'm a human first. So I expect the same for you. And if you have life stuff, you
That's
better
okay.
take the space for it too. And I'm
Yeah.
like the most understanding when people reschedule. So I think it's also kind of teaching people how it's okay to
Mhm.
interact with you, how it's okay to show up for things like appointments, and just taking a really like honest approach to it of, saying up front if you think you might get sick or if you're in a season where you don't have an additional grown up in the
Yeah.
room, to also just preface it with like, hey, I think this is going to work. Just a heads up, solo parent mode. You know, I'll give you a heads up as soon as I might know that I need to reschedule, and
Right,
just like
right.
being really clear and communicative ahead of time. And then if you do need to reschedule, I've rescheduled hundreds, if not thousands, of appointments over the last 4 years,
Yeah.
and I've never had anyone complain.
Yeah.
Like even
I think
clients who
as
are on hard deadlines, no one
right.
has a problem when you're honest.
I think as long as you're not like ghosting them and just like randomly canceling
No,
appointments, and because like for me, I'm like, oh no, sorry, my son's sick. I'll always put like the reason why I canceled because I
yeah.
feel bad. And like, most of the people I work with or talk to have children anyway, so they get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's helpful.
Yeah, and I
Y-
think particularly if you're still taking clients and working in the space where someone else is relying on you, I really found it helpful if you do need to reschedule things, if life happens, to also acknowledge that, like, I really appreciate that you're being flexible with me.
yeah,
This is, huge, and maybe going above and beyond to demonstrate that appreciation
yeah,
once you are back at work. I loved giving like little free add-ons to people when I did have to push back a deadline or, be particularly
right,
flexible during a project. And I think that really helped keep them happy and keep them kind of in
right.
a good place when we did get to the thing, potentially like a week or two late.
Right, because like no one, like let's be real, no one really wants to cancel things. Like
No.
I know every time I have to do it, I dread it so badly. I'm like, oh, this is awful. Because like most people respond well, but you never
Yeah.
know. You might get some rogue person who's just like they're having a bad day or something happens and their response is just not what you expected. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know I dread it, but I love that you're like kind of like adding on like little things that you can do, like a little template or something like you already
Yeah.
have, right?
You don't have
Doesn't
to do
even
any more work.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
I love
And I
that.
think something that was really pertinent to what you're saying before, it's like if you do find people come back to you, I think having a mentality of like, they're not for me,
Right.
and let them go. Yes, we have contracts, yes, we have obligations, but I encourage you to make sure those contracts have an out for you if it's not working,
Yeah.
so that if you find at any point during a client process, particularly, but like any point during an engagement, you can get out if it's not working for
Yeah.
you too. And I know sometimes we have to take jobs for money, but that's where having like a really solid contract. My sister is a lawyer, so you might like hear that seeping through, but like a really strong contract and making sure you have really clear terms about, deposits that are non-refundable to cover
Right.
at least the work you put in upfront, having out clauses and reschedule clauses, and
Yeah.
like really being solid. That's like the one thing in business I would say don't skimp on is
Yeah.
a good contract, because you can come back to it later if needs
Mhm.
be to enforce or waive those lovely rescheduling fees that you put in. You can waive those and sound really gracious if someone's been a good sport about rescheduling, or enforce them if that person is giving you a hard time and you want to kind of nudge them towards a mutual agreement to end something.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
I
get off my
think
soapbox now.
no, I think it's really important, yeah, because you don't wanna yeah, so many people try to, like, DIY their contracts and stuff, and then they don't have all these important things, and then, they're like, "Can this person enforce this, or can I
Hmm.
enforce this?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, it's not really your contract, so not you can't really, like, pull something out of thin air and,
Yeah,
hope someone agrees to it if it wasn't there in the first place, but what you can do is add it going forward so that you're
definitely.
protected." Because I think we all have been in situations where we had a client or something happened where we had to add extra stuff to our contract after the fact because
Yeah.
something went haywire along the way. I know it's happened to me on multiple occasions. So I think
Then you
sometimes we have
renegotiate as you
yeah,
go and you
yeah,
figure out your
exactly.
lines, your boundaries. And
Yep,
I think
yep.
another little nugget I'm going to share from my client days was also assuming that people don't read. Like they'll
Mm,
sign a contract because they want to get going. So using your welcome process, your
to
welcome
continue
emails, your welcome
educating. Yep,
document to reiterate those boundaries and
yep,
reiterate
yep,
how it's going to work with you. That
yep,
has gone a huge way. And that's something I even continue in like my one-on-one mentoring,
yep.
or when I create like group programs, just reiterating all that stuff in a more friendly,
Yeah.
digestible process kind of
Yeah,
approach can
yeah. I
really help
think
too.
I think that's important because yeah, because sometimes when your contract has like everything but the kitchen sink in it,
Yeah.
there are things that
And
people
all
are
in
gonna forget.
legalese.
Yeah, exactly. There people are not gonna like understand it or they're just gonna
Yeah.
trust you or they might forget. Like just friendly reminders is so, so important, I think,
Yeah.
along the
Exactly. I
way.
think the big lesson I learned early on that I sort of live by now is like people can't respect boundaries you haven't told them about.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes they might need to hear it twice because no one's paying as much attention to what you say as you are.
yeah,
So I think setting and reinforcing those healthy boundaries is just polite. Like then they
yeah.
know where the limit is. They won't cross it
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
they
Most
know
people
where it
aren't trying to
is.
be complete jerks.
No.
So, like, most people are not like that. So, you just need to
Yeah.
give people the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe I wasn't clear enough, or maybe I didn't communicate this enough, and things like
Hmm.
that. It's really
Yeah.
funny because I do some sponsorship, like for podcasts for clients, and we
Mm.
handle sponsorships. And there's so many instances where the sponsor will not read the contract that literally
Yep.
says something, and they come back and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that I was the one who was responsible for recording the ad segment. I thought that you guys were doing that, just like little things like that. And I'm just like, oh my Lord, like you got to put it in 40 places for people,
Hmm.
like in the proposal, in the contract, in the onboarding
Yep.
materials. And sometimes
In
even
a
if you put
separate
it,
email in
yeah,
bold.
yeah. And sometimes even if with all those places, people are still not seeing
Hmm.
it. Yeah. So it's just interesting. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So lastly, what is your number one tips for moms who are looking to start their own business?
Yeah, I think the maybe unhelpful, helpful advice I would say is like start with you, like you, the human, and figure out what kind of business, what kind of shape this work looks like, ideally for you. So, what kind of days do you want to be having? What do you want your weeks to look like? What kind of work when you sit down to your computer do you actually like and want to be doing?
Mm.
And start with that versus that shiny thing you've heard about potentially being a good money making idea. I think it's really tempting to just go where everybody else is and what seems proven. But a
Right.
lot of times those ideas won't work for you in your specific circumstances with your specific talents and skills and challenges and circumstances that mean that, you're the unique person you are. So I think really starting to like hone in on what it is you want, what it is you want that to look like, how that fits into your life, how that works with your brain, how you like to do things, and really start kind of building it from the ground up to suit you
Mm.
first. Then you can layer in all the beautiful marketing stuff of like how that's going to work for clients. But I think really starting with a super strong idea of what you want it to look like
Mm.
helps you build packages that make sense for you
Yeah.
with timelines that work for your actual life, with
Right.
marketing strategies that are going to lean into your natural strengths, with systems and processes that work for your brain, rather than just adopting piecemeal other people's systems, other people's ideas that
Right.
weren't built for you specifically.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to look at what other people are doing because that can be
Hmm,
helpful as a starting point, but you don't have to
as
model.
inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to model everything they do around what
Yeah.
you can do because we're all different people. We all have different circumstances. We all have
Yeah.
different, needs, different time capacities. So, yeah, you just need to be mindful for what is going to work for you as a human because you don't want to like build this business and then, like we talked about earlier, get to the point where you're just burning out because you just kept tacking things on and tacking things on and
Yeah.
tacking things on, and you didn't realize it until it was like too late.
Yeah. And I think especially for mums with little kids or high need kids,
Hmm.
you are so used to putting yourself third or last, it
Yep.
can be really easy to fall into this kind of trap of just adding clients onto that list of things that are more important than you.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that is something very quickly I kind of realized in following all these patterns that people teach you in these programs or courses of like you can put in as much as you want into the types of offers you create. You put in as much as you want out of your business, but if it's not giving you anything back, there's kind of no point.
Yeah, exactly. If
So
the only thing it's giving you is money, which obviously, don't get me wrong, we
that's
need to
helpful.
live, we need to survive on money. But if that's the only thing you're getting out of it, then it's, in the long
It's
run,
not a
is
fair
that really worth
exchange.
it? Yeah.
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 I
I
think
mean,
that's a big thing. It's like it needs to feel like a fair exchange.
yeah.
And at the beginning, you may not get a lot of money out of it, but if it can still be fulfilling in other ways and let you be present in the way you want, I think that's a pretty fair compromise to
Yeah.
make.
Yeah. I love that. And that's part of the reason why I started this kind of wing of my business because
Mm,
I wanted something that was like more fulfilling. I wanted to really help
yeah.
people. For me, it's like, sure, it's great if I make money, but that's not the end game goal because I want more people
Yeah.
to be able to have a business where they can be home with their kids or they can have them in part-time daycare or they can do whatever they want, but still have more time
Hmm.
with their kids. Even though my son is in full-time school, I still have more time with him than I would if I worked a regular 9 to 5. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way, like, I'd be dropping him off at 6, picking him up at 6 every day or later, so
Mm,
that's not the schedule I have. So I want more moms to experience that because I know,
mm,
it goes by so fast. My son's already like
yeah.
almost 3.5, and I'm like, where did time go? I'm about to have a newborn as well, but like, I
Mm,
just, I feel like his little toddlerhood has gone by the fastest I've ever seen in my life. Anything go
yeah.
by, so it just all
Time
goes by
is
so
so weird.
fast. So you
Time
just,
is so, yeah.
you want to be there for your kids and be able to experience what they have, especially once they start getting into like elementary and having like, they decide to join sports teams or do any
Oh my goodness.
extracurriculars. You want to be able to be there for them. Like, I know they do a little soccer program at my son's school, and it's so cute to see the little tiny toddlers running around getting
Oh.
soccer balls, or as they call it in everywhere but the US,
Football.
football, yeah, which totally makes sense because you are using your
Hmm.
foot to kick it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, I love that. Well, tell us where we can find you online. So let us know, about where we can find you personally and your joint business and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so my business is all under my name, Michelle Pontvert or Pontvert, Pontvrt. And that's at my website, michellepontvert.com, and Michelle Pontvert on everything because I'm the only one. So nice and easy. And I have links to my shop all throughout that stuff. So that's a really good place to find me. And then the joint business is Like a Mother Movement, and we're at likeamothermovement.com. We are really pretty off social media, but we do have a wonderful podcast, which is
Mhm.
called Marketing Like a Mother, which is really fun.
Mhm.
And we have episodes every Sunday. We've got a mix of chats between Olivia and I. They are very honest, very unfiltered
Yeah.
conversations between two people with a lot on running businesses in kind of non-traditional ways. And
Yep.
then we bring on really interesting guests who are also running businesses alongside families. So definitely
Yeah.
encourage you to check that out too.
Yeah. I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes for you guys. But thank you
Thanks.
so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was lovely. And I always love connecting with other parents building businesses because it
Yeah.
is a very unique
It's
experience and
different.
one
It's so
worth
much
thinking
different.
about.
Yeah, Lindsay
Yeah.
doesn't have kids, so so I connect with other people to get that mom fix, but we
Yeah.
get a good business fix together.
Yeah, I love it.